pledge is by Lori Green with the Alliance Colorado and Denver, Colorado.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Please call the roll.
Representatives Arndt, Becker J, Becker K, Beckman, Representative Beckman, Benavides, Bridges, Buck, Buckner, Carver, Catlin, Coleman, Covarrubias, Danielson, Escar, Everett, Exum, Foote, Representative Foote,
Excuse.
Garnett,
Representative Foote is in the back.
Janal, Gray, oh. Hamner, Hanson, Herod, Hooten, Humphrey, Representative Humphrey, Jackson, Kennedy, Kraft Tharp, Landgraf, Representative Landgraf,
Excused.
Lawrence, Representative Lawrence, oh, thank you. Lebsock, Lee, Leonard, Lewis, Liston, Lontine, Lundeen, McKean, McLaughlin, Melton, Michelson Janae, Mitch Bush, Navarro, Neville, Nordberg, Pabon, Pedersen, Rankin, Ransom, Rosenthal, Sane, Salazar, Sias, thank you, Singer,
Excused.
Thurlow, Valdez, Van Winkle, Representative Van Winkle, oh, thank you, Weissman, Willett, Williams, Wilson, good morning, Winter, Wist, Young, Madam Speaker.
I am here.
Thank you. Beckman and Singer? Yes. Morning, Connor. Oh, there's Becky. Oh, hey, you made it. We're all here. And that's Becky over there at her desk, right?
With 64 presents. Oh, 65 present. Oh, wow. Who was that? Representative Singer, right on time. 65 present and 0 excused. We have a quorum. Representative Exum, good morning.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. I move that the reading of the Journal of Tuesday, Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2017, be dispensed with and approved by the corrected by the Chief Clerk.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying no. Motion passes. Announcements and introductions.
Hello, Representative Lewis.
Good morning, Colorado. Today we have a special opportunity. If I could have your attention, please. Good morning. Today we have a group of kids that traveled all the way from Plainview School, which is way out on the Eastern Plains, almost to Kansas, and there are 17 of them here today visiting the Capitol. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Plainview High School. Kids, please stand up. Some are in the chamber, some are up top. Thank you for coming.
Further announcements or introduction? Looks like a lot of people. Representative Winter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have requested permission from leadership, but now I'm asking all of you to be excused on this Friday, February 17th.
You are excused, despite what Representative Jay Becker says.
Did you?
Further announcements and introductions. Who wants to go next? Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I have a civics class from Cripple Creek who are supposed to be here today. I'm not sure if they're here yet, but we can still wave and say hello for the record. And then I also have Captain Duffy from Douglas County, who you will hear a little bit more about later, but I want to welcome my two groups here today.
Representative Jay Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, tonight we have a fun event with the motor carriers in the Petroleum Association at the University Club. Starts at 4:30. Be a great event for you all to see all those people fighting for us and trying to get transportation moving. So make sure you're at the University Club at 4:30.
Representative Arndt. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Agriculture will meet upon adjournment in 271 for a joint ag meeting, and the Colorado State Forest Service will report on the condition of our Colorado forests. See you there.
All right, Representative Beck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I would like everybody in the House to please welcome the Estes Park Education Association. Thank you so much for coming down. We're grateful for you.
Representative Foote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And also, while we're on the topic of education associations, we have the St. Vrain Valley Education Association. Please stand up over there in the corner and please welcome them to the House today.
Representative McKean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is Education Association Day, so I'd like you guys to recognize the Thompson Education Association in the back. And maybe Mr. Jim Wilson, who was the superintendent. Thank you. Now,
Thank you. Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, on your desk, what you've been waiting for 3 weeks. Tomorrow is the Sportsman's Caucus. I hauled in 240 hot dogs this morning, so please check out the list there. Also, if I could have your attention over on my right, we have special people here in our group today. In Canyon City and Salida, we have a Star Point group there that works with the special needs community. We have two elected board members, Janet Trujillo and Brenda Heckel, that are here. And Madam Speaker, I know that the others would really like to be introduced, but they're not elected, so I can't introduce Yvonne Stenzel, Chuck Stenzel, Tina Kraft, Tom Evers, April Lindahl, and Bob Arnold, so I couldn't introduce those, but thank you, Madam Speaker.
You get an A for creativity. However, that'll be a $1 fine. Any further announcements or introductions? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to ask for a moment of personal privilege.
A moment of personal privilege. A moment of personal privilege is granted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise today to speak to you about a matter that affects the dignity of this chamber. Recently, there were remarks attributed to me concerning a bill that I introduced, and now I understand the rules, so I won't be discussing the merits of this bill today. But by way of context, the bill I introduced concerns the issue of illegal immigration. Understandably, there are strong opinions on both sides concerning this topic. But I need to call attention to the insensitive words that were spoken about me during this important policy debate. One of our members referred to me as a half Latino, and this term was used as a means to diminish my standing on this policy issue and to lessen my credibility within the Latino community. These tactics are disgraceful and in poor taste. And I'm sorry that my surname doesn't match my ethnicity or my heritage, but I'm proud of who I am and where I come from. I get the partisanship of this place, and I understand the need for both sides to score political points from time to time. But this crossed the line. This was disrespectful to me and to my family. The very implication that my voice on matters concerning the Latino community doesn't count because I'm not full-blooded, this is something that should not be tolerated. Several weeks ago, I was denied membership into the Latino caucus. Initially, I chalked it up to mere partisanship, but now I can't help but wonder if there's another reason. I want to believe that this body truly cares about inclusiveness. I want to believe that this body truly cares about tolerance, but I can't help but wonder these things in light of these events. I mean, could you imagine if this was said about President Barack Obama? He had the honor of being elected the first African-American president, and rightfully so. And if someone questioned that achievement, I think all of us would rightfully disavow that. In that same manner, calling someone only half Latino is a way to discredit a position that they have taken as unbecoming of the dignity of this chamber, and it compromises our Colorado values of equality. We are a body of ideas and constructive dialogue, but we need to be able to disagree without resorting to personal attacks or disrespectful characterizations meant to drive divisiveness and hate. I want to ask all of you to remember that we are all equal members of this body and deserve an equal level of respect. We don't have to agree on policy, but we should agree that our decorum, whether under this gold dome or not, should always be commensurate with that of this esteemed institution of government. Members, I thank you for your attention on this, and I thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to address this body. Thank you.
There's no applause, just like in previous times. With that, any further announcements or introductions? Seeing no announcements or introductions, the next order of business is third reading of bills. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1035.
House Bill 1035 by Representative Jackson, also Senator Cook, concerning allowing certain crime victims to break their rental agreements under certain circumstances.
Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1035 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1035 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Randall, please open the machine.
Representative Beckman, Representative Bridges, Representative Exum, Representative Lee. And I just closed the machine. With 62 yes votes, 3 no votes, House Bill 1035 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1049.
House Bill 1049 by Representatives Thurlow and Gray, also under quorum, concerning the elimination of refund interest related to a property tax abatement.
Assistant Majority Leader Gurnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1049 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1049 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Randall, please open the machine. And again, I'm going to close the machine. With 64 yes votes, 1 no vote, House Bill 1049 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1054.
House Bill 1054 by Representatives Carver and Nordberg, also Senator Todd, concerning partnerships between local governments and military installations and in connection therewith identifying shared service opportunities to reduce costs and increase efficiencies.
Assistant Majority Leader Gurnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1054 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1054 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine. I'm going to close the machine. With 63 yes votes, 2 no votes, House Bill 1054 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1123.
House Bill 1123 by Representatives Lebsack and Thurlow, also Senator Marble, concerning the ability of a local government to extend the hours during which alcohol beverages may be sold for consumption on a licensed premise.
Assistant Majority Leader Gurnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1123 on third reading and final passage.
Representative Liston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, sincere thanks and kudos to Representative Lebsack and Representative Thurlow. They made a good case for their bill, but in due conscience, I wanted to at least let the members know why I cannot support this bill. first of all, I do support local control. I understand what that's about. But I did check with our sheriff in El Paso County and the chief of police of the city of Colorado Springs. I told them I would do that, and I did. And at least for the members from El Paso County and Colorado Springs, they are opposed to this legislation. You know, I'm not a fuddy-duddy. I understand, you know, how this works and so forth. But to me, do we really need to let the bars stay open until 7 o'clock in the morning? Think about it. That's when kids are going to school and people are going to work. And about the very same time that, the bars are closing, we're going to have, you know, the real potential for some real travesty. To me, this just kind of adds to the concept of moral rot. And I don't really think that we need this. So obviously, you know, vote how you will. I understand that, but I just wanted to rise and let you know where I'm coming from in opposition. But once again, it's all with all due respect to my good colleagues and their bill. I just wanted to let you know where I stood. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Representative Singh.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and with due respect to my colleagues, Representative Lebsack and Thurlow, I'm going to speak against this bill today because I'm going to come from a little bit more of a practical standpoint. Representative Liston mentioned a couple things, but I've heard mention this is a liberty bill, and that may be the case for certain communities. However, the communities who choose not to do this, you're pushing a lot of negative externalities on them, and they're going to have to beef up their police force. This is going to grow government. So there's a lot of things to consider on this bill, and I know this is kind of a pioneering concept to let the bars open until 7 a.m. in Colorado. It's not something I don't think we've done before, maybe in the Wild West days. But in these days, we've had an uptick in drugged driving along with drunk driving. And as you know, I've worked with a lot of those laws with felony DUI and with some of the victims of drugged and drunk driving. And of course, in my own family, I've had a tragedy of somebody being killed by a drunk driver who just would not stop driving while drunk. So in the interest of public safety, I think there's a lot of complications this bill can bring. So I would urge a no vote on this. I think there's some things that are a statewide concern and should be under statewide control. This is one of them. Thank you.
Representative Thurlow.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. And thank you, Representative Sane and Liston, for voicing your concerns, because I understand, and it was strange, we didn't have much of a debate on seconds. We didn't have any debate on seconds. I assure you we had a vigorous debate in local government. The bill came out of local government 11-2. The concerns that Representative Liston and Sane are expressing are grave concerns to all of us. They're certainly concerns to me. They're certainly concerns to Representative Lebsack. And I think that was probably the highest priority, was safety first. But here's what the testimony was at the committee, some of the testimony anyway. And I think you all got an email this morning from the Colorado Municipal League, which it was just before we started, so you may not have had time to read it. So let me just highlight a couple of the things that, because the Municipal League is supportive of this bill for a couple of reasons. The first reason being that it's not prescriptive. It doesn't make any community do anything. If they do nothing, everything stays the same. So that's, to me, is a first pretty important premise, is that we are not ordering any local government to do anything. Here's what was talked about safety is one. Some of the different hours is already happening. If communities have created entertainment districts, they already are setting different hours. And the Municipal League says that there's no evidence that that has created an increase in DUIs. There's no, if we're looking at evidence-based solutions, there's no evidence to say that there's any worse safety record. And indeed, some of the people at the hearing made the case that this is actually a better way for local communities to perform their safety functions. There was one guy that told an entertaining little story about if you bring in a bucket of mice and dump it on the floor and you only have 3 cats, you only catch 3 mice. And that's what we do now when we mandate a 2 o'clock closing for everyone. We put people on the streets all at once, and it actually is counterproductive as far as law enforcement rather than productive. So that was one argument that was made by several different people. So that's what I would tell you is this bill has been well vetted. The concerns were addressed. I know there's still some disagreement on those concerns, but my feeling after hearing all the testimony was that there is no additional safety problem created. It may actually make the safety situation better. And again, the place I start is the place I finish. We're not telling anybody to do anything. We're just giving the communities around the state the option to do something if they want to. So I ask for a yes vote. Thank you.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Lebsock and Representative Thurlow, for being willing to carry this bill. It's not one of those fun ones, I realize that. And ironically, colleagues, Representative Lebsock and I, neither one drink. It's not about drinking on this bill, and I wanted to rise against this bill. One of the reasons was that Representative Liston got up, and we were one of the 2 that voted against it in committee, and I didn't want you to be the Lone Ranger. So I just wanted to share with you what I just couldn't get over as I listened to the testimony. Will longer drinking hours make us safer? I just couldn't get over that. And I'm one that votes my conscience first, my constituents second, and my caucus third, and I understand local control. But there's a public safety issue. And ironically, Representative Thurlow talked about CML supporting this. So at the CML reception that night, ironically, I'm sitting at a table with constituents from 2 of my communities, and we got to talking about the bill, and they supported my vote. So not only my conscience won't allow me to do it, but my constituents would not either. So again, as you decide how you're going to vote on this, please consider, will passing this bill make us safer? Thank you.
Representative Lebsock.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it's unusual that we get a number of speakers on third reading, but I feel compelled to speak. Members, my grandmother died from a head-on collision from a person who was drinking too much and had a DUI. But you don't see me down here trying to go back to prohibition. We tried prohibition and it doesn't work. In fact, I'm fairly consistent with the bills that I run, and I want more local control, and I think most of us here in this body want more local control to local governments, because the very best decisions happen locally. Your local city council or your local county commissioners working with either your sheriffs or your chiefs and the business community, frankly, should be determining when bars and restaurants close. Not some arbitrary number from some state legislator that we decide 2 a.m. happens to be the magic number. Who are we to determine that 2 a.m. is the perfect arbitrary number? Members, this is, as Representative Thurlow stated, this is fairly clear cut. We are going to allow local governments with coordination between their local law enforcement and their local chambers and business communities determine when the appropriate time to close is. That's what this bill does. And I ask for a yes vote.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1123 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine. Representative Lawrence, Representative Pabon, Representative Van Winkle.
Representative Van Winkle, please close the machine. With 38 yes votes, 27 no votes, HB 1123 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Ms. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1128.
House Bill 1128 by Representative Hamner, also Senator Donovan, concerning the salary categorization of locally elected officials in Lake County.
Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1128 on third reading and final passage.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, it's come to my attention that there might be some confusion about this bill. So I just want to make sure that you understand that in passing, if you vote for House Bill 1128, you're giving Lake County the ability to lower their salaries. They got placed in the wrong category when we carried the bill last year. So if the bill doesn't pass, you'd be forcing them to raise their salaries. So the bill lowers their salary. So I ask for a yes vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1128 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine. Representative Lang, all right, please close the machine. With 65 yes votes, 0 no votes, HB 1128 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Ms. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1061.
House Bill 1061 by Representatives Becker J. and Melton, also Senators Scott and Todd, concerning the modification of the class of vehicles that is subject to regulation as commercial vehicles.
Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1061 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1061 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine. Please close the machine. With 65 yes votes, 0 no votes, HB 1061 is passed. Co-sponsor. Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1105.
House Bill 1105 by Representative Becker J. also Senator Baumgartner, concerning narrowing the circumstances in which physical inspection of a vehicle is required before issuing legal documentation identifying the vehicle.
Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1105 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is the passage of House Bill 1105 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Randall, please open the machine. Please close the machine. With 65 yes votes, 0 no votes, HB 1105 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Message from the Senate.
Madam Speaker, the Senate has adopted and transmits herewith Senate Joint Resolution 9.
Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to suspend the rules for immediate consideration of SJR 009.
Seeing no objection, the question before us is whether we will suspend the rules for the immediate consideration of SJR 009, and we will do that. Representative Arndt and Representative Rankin.
Thank you very much. I move Senate Joint Resolution 09 and ask that it be read at length.
Whereas, for over 50 years, Colorado's community-based services system has led the way for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities to receive services and support that afford them greater independence and community interaction. And whereas Colorado's community system for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities has a long, proud history of enabling individuals to move from large institutional services to smaller, community-based integrated services that offer personalized assistance and support. And whereas Colorado's community system for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities helps individuals obtain meaningful employment in a variety of settings, allowing them to work and build relationships within their communities. And whereas Coloradans with intellectual and developmental disabilities in every county across the state are able to live, learn, play, and work in their communities with the dignity, choices, opportunities, and responsibilities afforded to all citizens due to the services and supports provided by local community-centered boards and program-approved service agencies. And whereas there is significant demand across Colorado for services and supports for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and waiting lists for services are growing. And whereas today more than 20,000 Coloradans with intellectual and developmental disabilities receive high-quality services and supports through community-centered boards and program-approved service agencies, now therefore be it resolved by the Senate of the 71st General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that we, the members of the Colorado General Assembly, proclaim February 15th, 2017 to be Awareness Day for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the state of Colorado. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to community-centered boards and organizations that provide services and supports to adults and children with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families throughout Colorado.
Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm certainly honored to be one of the co-sponsors of this important resolution. This approach, our community-centered approach, is not just the right thing to do, but after following this on the Budget Committee for a few years, I know that it's also a cost-effective and evidence-based approach to taking care of our IDD citizens. I also have developed, and working on this for a couple of years, a very deep respect for those who provide the services. These community center boards are generally nonprofit organizations with a local board with local control. My own board in Glenwood Springs is run by Bruce Christensen, who for 38 years has labored in this labor of love, often with not enough budget and with a waiting list, trying to find providers who can provide valuable services in a community that may not have all those resources. And I especially want to reach out to those private companies and nonprofits who work with the community center boards to integrate people into the community, living in group homes generally, and many of them doing productive work in local businesses. So thank you so much to all of you who provide those services and to all of you for supporting IDD, our IDD program.
Thank you, Representative Rankin.
Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I too rise in strong support, and I'm honored to be asked to be a joint sponsor of this resolution. Fort Collins has had an amazing Foothills Gateway, has been a key player in our community for, I should know, but I think it must be since I was a tiny, tiny kid. And also the private, I can't go through a day like this without mentioning Steele's Market, which doesn't exist anymore. But when I was a kid, it was a privately owned local market, and Bert Steele just thought it was the right thing to do to hire and include individuals with developmental disabilities. And from my earliest memory, our community looked like the people who lived there. And I honestly think those early experiences of feeling like we're all together led me in later life to become a special ed teacher, where I devoted most of my professional energy until I did this to this professional field. And I served on the Commission of Disabilities, where we got to give awards to community members, other businesses around town, through no coercion or anything, just because it's the right thing to do. You hire people, your community looks like the people who live there, and it makes it stronger. So I want to thank you all for being here today. There's a lot of personal stories. They're done fantastic, and I'm just happy to be here. And I think we have something else.
Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in strong support of this resolution. However, I would like to amend a little bit of language in the resolution. So I move L001 and ask that it be displayed.
L001 has been properly moved and displayed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So if you look at this particular paragraph in the resolution, you notice that we recognize that Coloradans with intellectual and developmental disabilities in every county across the state are able to live, learn, play, and work in their communities with dignity, choices, opportunities, and responsibilities afforded to all citizens. And then we say in the resolution, due to the services and supports provided by local community center boards and program-approved service agencies, which is certainly true. But it's also afforded to our brothers and sisters in the intellectual and developmental disabilities arena that is provided by host home providers, families, parents, and natural community support. And we did not want to be exclusive, we wanted to be inclusive to make sure that we know that all of us, in whatever capacity we can share, welcome all in Colorado. And so I ask for a yes vote in the name of inclusiveness on L001.
Any further discussion on L001? Representative McKean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And actually, I'll address my comments to this amendment. The day we were sworn in, I don't know if you guys noticed, but a little boy was sleeping in my arms. He is one of my best friends. And Colton Parks has Down syndrome, and Colton and I are just thick as thieves. I mean, we are just two of the best friends in the world. So he came down because he couldn't sit up in the gallery and watch me anymore and went to sleep in my arms. I support this amendment because it's not just the programs. It is his family, his school. It's everybody that plugs into Colton's life. Just got a message the other day that he in kindergarten is now writing his name, which is kind of a big deal. Well, it's a big deal for me writing my name in kindergarten, much less Colton. But it's everybody that plugs into that. And I absolutely support this and would ask for a yes vote on, as you said, the inclusivity of this language. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on L001? Seeing none, the question before us. Representative Young to the amendment L001.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I support L001 as well. I really do value the work that our PASAs and our CCBs do. But, you know, I had a conversation with Corey Robinson, who's a well-respected professor at JFK Partners recently. Her best estimate for the number of people in the state of Colorado who are challenged with IDD is 130,000. Now, this memorial or this resolution indicates that our CCBs and our PASAs are serving 20,000 out of that 130,000. And so I appreciate Representative Pabon bringing this because the other 110,000 are being served by people called out through this amendment. And so I thank you for bringing that and recognizing that.
Any further discussion on L001? Seeing none, the question before us is a passage of L001. All of those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying no. L001 is adopted. Back to the resolution. Representative Landgraf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I stand here today in strong support of this resolution. As many of you know, I have a disabled son. He was 17 when he suffered a brain injury. He went from being recruited by, I'd say, every school on the East Coast to, and having what his teacher called the best math aptitude he had ever seen, to not being able to read, not being able to do anything. So I understand how important these services are for people with disabilities. But I wanted to tell you two success stories today. I met with a gentleman yesterday who has a daughter who has Down syndrome. And they love her. They raised 3 children. And when the 2 oldest ones started leaving to get an apartment and go to college, she said, "Why can't I get an apartment?" She didn't understand why she wasn't being treated like her siblings. She got angry. She started leaving things all over the house and just kind of being very subtle and kind of wreaking havoc. When the parents realized, why can't she get an apartment? She now lives independently. She does have she has an apartment mate just to make sure she's safe. And she has a great life. She has friends, she has a job, she has a family. She has what everybody in this building would aspire to. She was lucky she has the services that we talk about, that we fund. She has parental support. So I think it's very important that we consider that when we see bills that have the potential of taking these services away from people. And I know I'm going on, but I was asked to share one other story, and I will read quickly, I hope. John Henderson lives in his own apartment in Colorado Springs and receives supports from Dungarvan, Colorado, LLC, a program-approved services agency. He also receives some help from his family, especially his mother. In addition to living on his own, John works at the Broadmoor World Arena as a custodian. He uses public transportation to get to work and uses Uber to get home when his shift ends late at night. What would we do without Uber? While John likes his job at the Broadmoor World Arena, he made it very clear that it is not what he wants to do for the rest of his life. To that end, John agreed to be one of the first people to use our Journeys Person-Centered Planning program to help him achieve his dreams. We sat down with John and the rest of his interdisciplinary team and asked him what kind of job he'd really like to have. This is fascinating. John told us that his dream job is to be a paid film critic because he loves movies and loves to talk and write about them. We were able to quickly identify and develop his goal and the corresponding objectives, and through the amazing power of person-centered planning, within about 10 days of his initial planning meeting, we created his own Facebook page called Warped Movie Reviews. John continues to work toward his ultimate goal of working for Rotten Tomatoes, a film critic website. His next step will have him creating his own YouTube channel so he can bring his Warped Movie Reviews to life. John is a great example of how the unique combination of paid and natural supports can help individuals with IDD thrive and continue to his community, and that using person-centered planning is an outstanding way to get individuals invested in their own lives so they are motivated to do things and achieve levels of independence previously thought impossible. And I think that's really the moral of this story, that it's time that we start realizing that people, just because they may be a little different from us, it doesn't mean they're disabled. It just means they're differently abled, and they deserve to have their own apartments. They deserve to have their own Warped Movie Reviews program. Thank you.
Representative Oscar. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I rise in strong support of SJR 17009 as amended, probably I think for the 3rd year in a row that I've been here, and I won't belabor it because I probably share the same story every year as well, but really, it is an entire village that takes care of people that have intellectual and developmental disabilities. And my great aunt, I grew up with her, and my great grandmother would take care of her, and they went everywhere together. They were bosom buddies. They went everywhere, did everything together, shared personal inside jokes that none of us ever understood or got, but rest assured that they found a lot of humor in it. Well, as my great grandmother got older and unable to take care of my aunt, our family, I remember being young and even understanding that there was a moment of panic within our family. Because by that time, my grandmother, her sister, was also getting older and frail and didn't have the capacity to really take care of my great aunt. And we ended up finding a great CCB within Pueblo to really take her in. And I can remember feeling nervous and feeling like we were not taking care of her because she's our family, but wanting to make sure that she was getting the care that she deserved. And it didn't take long for us to realize that that was exactly the best place for her to be. She gained her independence. She learned how to blossom and really come out of the shadow of my great-grandmother. And when my great-grandmother passed away, my grandma had to make the decision. What did she do? Did she keep her where she now called home? Did my grandmother try to take her into her own home? And the decision was made as a family to keep her within that home, that community home that had become her home. And when my great aunt passed away, I can still remember the impact it had on me at the funeral. Our family was there, but I looked over and the entire whole right side of the church was filled with workers, with people that worked with her every single day of her life and people that became her family. And that's truly what I believe the majority of the workers within this realm do. They become the family members. They become the friends of people with IDD. And I just cannot thank them enough personally for the work that they did for my aunt, but also personally for the work that they do for all of our community members. So I rise in full support of 009.
Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand in strong support of SJR 17009. A couple years ago, I had the privilege and the honor to be asked to sponsor this resolution, and it's one of those days that I carry with me always in my memories of my time here at the legislature. At that time, I told you about my friend Sandy's brother, Billy Bador, who must be 57, 58 now. And I told you about how Billy Bador, who lives in Minnesota, lives independently in an independent facility, that he runs a coffee kiosk, and how he had gotten a girlfriend. And this was kind of the high point of the whole family's life. This last year, Billy went to Africa with my friend Sandy on a project to help nonprofit organizations be able to work with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And he had the time of his life being able to be part of a trainer. But a couple years ago when I did this resolution with Representative Jim Wilson. And you know, we will all carry memories of our time here in the legislature with us, and I hope that they're good ones. And one of the things that I carry with me very, very closely is the Jim Wilson story. And I get tears in my eyes every time I hear it. And Madam Speaker, if you would please give me the leeway to invite Representative Wilson to come up and share with us the Jim Wilson story, so that it can carry on in the legacy of the legislature. Representative Wilson, can I? Thank you.
Representative Wilson, if you are so inclined.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Oh, no,
well,
don't do that.
You asked for it.
Indeed.
Obviously, I rise in support of this resolution. It's amazing the resource that we have with those who are intellectually and developmentally challenged that we overlook. So Representative Kraft-Tharp wanted me to share what I call Lisa's story. I wasn't always this massive. When I was in high school and college, I was just plain skinny. And so in high school, I always wanted to be bigger, and
tougher and so forth. So my brother and I figured the best way to do that would be to, and some of you can remember this, you know, when they first came out with those protein pills that you could put on a lot of mass and so forth. Well, we literally had a jug of those puppies that big that we carried with us hauling hay. And ironically, Representative Lebsock, we would take protein pills and drink beer to try to gain weight while we were hauling hay. And there was a family in our church that we knew, and the father was a deacon in the church, and they were pregnant with their first child, and my brother and I were growing up in the church, and we watched all the excitement of the pregnancy and so forth, and Lisa was born, and she was born with Down syndrome. And like many of you, I'm sure, we would hold the baby and so forth and pat the baby and play like we were really engaged with the baby, but really we were thinking, that's too bad. Well, then we grew a little older, and my brother and I decided we better pack on that weight. He was still in high school playing football, and I was getting ready to go to college to play basketball and track. And so that was in the early 60s, and so we started working for Lisa's dad, whose name was Merle. He had a hay hauling operation, and so we were the laborers, and so we would work hard. And when we'd take off for lunch, we'd go to Merle and Linda's house and eat lunch with Linda and Lisa and her two sisters. And you know, when you're a teenager and you're lifting weights and hauling hay and taking protein pills and thinking you're bulletproof, you're really not too sensitive to other people. In fact, you're downright egotistical and kind of obnoxious. So we eat lunch, and we'd visit, and we'd get ready to go out the door, and Lisa would come over and wrap her arms around me and say, "I love you, Jim Wilson." And I stood there rigid as a post, because I wasn't a hugger, which will surprise some of you now that I'm older. But we'd go out and haul hay again, and the next day we'd come back and we'd visit, and she'd give me that hug and say, "I love you, Jim Wilson." Boy, that was tough for me. And I'm sure it would be tough for you as well. But we continued to do that. She was different, but she taught me more about people and how to love one another than anyone ever did. I went rigid because she was different. I went rigid because she was loving. I went rigid because she was a she. So I did the trifecta on that deal. Well, my brother and I branched off, and we started our own hay hauling business because we found out that in hay hauling there's labor and there's management. Labor doesn't get paid much, so we went with management. We followed Lisa's progress as she went to a group home and began working on her own independently, and they were putting together pallets like what you see in all the lumber yards and so forth. And then she branched out to her own home and put paste on pizzas. Now, folks, when you think that the folks that we're talking about and honoring here today don't contribute to our society, I could not put paste on a pizza 8 hours a day. I could not do it. And Lisa loved it. And when I'd see her, I'd say, you know, "How are you doing?" "Oh, great, Jim Wilson. I'm putting paste on pizza and so forth." And I said, "That's great. That's great." And obviously, even as she became an adult, she'd hug me and say, "I love you, Jim Wilson." And I learned to hug her back. I learned to hug her back. She passed away a few years ago, and I miss her. I miss her. We still exchange Christmas cards with her mom, keep in touch with what's going on with her sisters. But folks, if you don't interact with the folks we're honoring today, you miss out on what Representative McCain's talking about, the opportunity to find people that can teach you things that we will never learn in this chamber. And just as sure as I'm standing here, I can still feel her arms around my waist saying, "I love you, Jim Wilson." And I really appreciate those of you
who work with those kids. Thank you.
Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in strong support of SJR 17-009 and just want to take a few seconds to recognize the outstanding organizations that we have in El Paso County that have devoted their lives to providing support to those with developmental disabilities and their families. Truly a godsend. The Independence Center, the ARC of Pikes Peak, Cheyenne Village, and the Resource Exchange. These folks have dedicated their lives to building a network of support to enable those with developmental disabilities to live independently, to pursue their dreams, and to give their families hope that this child can also have a great life. So didn't want to miss the opportunity to recognize the great work they do. Thank you.
Representative Bush.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When I first moved to Steamboat Springs a little over 40 years ago, I'd come from a city, big city. Back then, Steamboat's population and its elevation were ironically exactly the same, 6,695. It's a lot bigger than that now, it's 13,000. That's when I first discovered what a compassionate, caring community really meant. That's when I discovered Horizons, which has been around for more than 40 years in Steamboat Springs. Horizons has engaged in person-centered kinds of supports and help for all those years. Horizons has gotten our entire community and many businesses engaged in hiring Horizons clients. Horizons works with families, it works with individuals, and Horizons also has gone several times now to the taxpayers of our county, Routt County, and Moffat County, and gotten support, monetary support, because it does take a community, it does take a village, but if you can't build that group home, if you can't create those wonderful independent living opportunities because there aren't the funds available, you can have all the care and compassion in the world, but you can't get the job done the way you really want to. So people in our community, in Steamboat Springs and in surrounding communities, value Horizons, and I particularly think of Sue. Sue has worked ever since I remember at Safeway, and Safeway is all the better for Sue. And there are many other folks from Horizons who have gotten jobs throughout our community and to enrich our community and who are recognized in our community as people. People with dignity, people with dreams, and people with the opportunity now, for the past 40 years at least, to pursue those dreams because of Horizons. So I would very much like to thank Horizons, and quite obviously from what I've said, I rise in strong support of SJR 17009.
Representative Rankin. No. Representative Janal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd be remiss not to come up here and to rise in strong support of Senate Joint Resolution 9 for many reasons. For Larimer County, we have the ARC of Larimer County, we have Spirit Crossings, we have Respite Care, and we also had Foothills Gateway, thank you, as well as many, many others that I probably haven't mentioned, and I apologize for that. But also, on a personal note, I've shared in prior years, but I couldn't let it go this year. Personally, I have a stepson from a former partner, and I helped to raise this young man since he was 7 years old until he was about 17 years old. And he helped me to understand what the disabilities community was all about. Justin, who is now 28, and I just met and had dinner with him and his mother a couple of weeks ago, is happy, and he is in Loveland at a day program called Wings, and is doing very well. He used to work at Foothills Gateway and be involved there. And however, I have to tell you, I remember going to dances with him that were once a month or once every other month, and other social events, and how happy these types of programs were. And also that my former partner worked in group homes as well for adults with intellectual disabilities. And to have experienced those folks who are living in group homes, who are, and the people who work with them. And I'm just so proud that I've had the opportunity to experience this both personally and to be involved with Larimer County and all the groups that are involved with the intellectual and developmentally disabled community. So on behalf of Justin and everyone else with IDD, I rise in full support of this resolution. Thank you.
Representative McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise in support of this. In La Plata County, we have Community Connections, and it's a true community, and we love that they provide opportunity and love and compassion, and it's made us all come together as a community, and so I just want to say thank you to La Plata County for what they do. Thank you.
Representative Lantine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representatives Arndt and Rankin, for carrying this. Like Representative Kraft-Tharp, I've also carried this. On my first year here, I carried it, and so I certainly support Senate Joint Resolution 009. And the first year I carried it with Representative Landgraf, I wasn't able to speak because I had laryngitis. So she was kind enough to read a few remarks off for me. But this year it has more personal meaning for me, and I would like to thank Representative Pabon for the addition of his amendment, because that's relevant to my situation, although who could top Representative Wilson's story and who wanted to follow that, because I thought I shouldn't go up and talk. I can't top that. What a great personal story, and really reminds us all of the things that we learn. But this year, my grandson has been diagnosed with autism, and I'm so proud of him every day. He's 3 years old, and I'm in the caretaker position, and I have already learned so much for a little guy. Thank you, Representative Coleman, for the tissue. I'm still using it. We're just beginning our journey with Sean. And we don't know where that journey is going to take us. Some days are struggles and some days are delights. I appreciate all the support that we've gotten from all the caregivers outside of our home, but it's our family who really carries us forward. So thank you for your recognition today.
Representative Barnes.
Thank you. Well, having my career be in this field, I have 1,000 million stories, and I wasn't going to share one because I just had too many to choose from. But I want to add one point to the stories that everyone else has said, is please, please, please never, never underestimate someone who you think may have IDD. And this is the story. I was a high school teacher, and in my classroom I had a mixture of, we used to call people mildly mentally handicapped, emotionally handicapped. Pretty much the principal said, just send them to Jenny, she'll take anybody, which is true. I had a kid named Ricky in my class, and Ricky would raise his hand at any question. And I'd always call on Ricky, and every time Ricky would say football. That was his answer. Or we were in West Lafayette, he'd say Purdue. Ricky, Purdue. Thank you, Ricky. And I knew it, you know, and every day we did the same thing, maybe 10 times a day, and I never failed to call on him. So that year came and passed, and he left the high school, and eventually I did too. And it was a few years later, I was coming out of the local swimming pool, and I had my bike helmet on and my glasses, and I was dripping wet, and I was on my bike, and I was riding past, and in the line to get into the public pool was Ricky and his mom, and Ricky was about 22 then. And I thought, oh, that's Ricky. And I was riding home, and I thought, now, Jenny, anybody, I thought, well, Ricky wouldn't know me. But I thought, you don't say hi to someone so they say hi back. If that was any of my other students, I would have stopped and said hi. All right, turn my bike around, go back up, and he's still waiting in line with his mom, and I said, hey, Ricky. And he looked at me, kind of not really noticing, but his mom turned completely gray. She was ashen-faced. And I said, what is it? And she said, well, I'm Ricky's mom. I said, nice to meet you. I'm his former teacher. And she goes, when you rode your bike past the first time with your helmet and your glasses on, Ricky looked at me and he said, well, there goes Mrs. Arndt. And that day, she and I started crying and hugging each other because she had a new insight and understanding into Ricky, and so did I. All those years had passed, and Ricky knew me right off the bat with even unrecognizable. And it was just the neatest thing in the world. So never, never underestimate what's going on in someone's brain. And you know, that was probably one of the best things I ever did. And Ricky was fine. He knew who I was. He was like, yeah, of course that's Mrs. Arndt. But it was the realization that his mom had that day that was the real interesting, neat thing. And myself too. So thank you for letting me share a story. Representative Rankin, you want to wind it up?
Representative Rankin.
I'll just say thank you all for your sharing, sharing very personal, very meaningful stories. It's a real bonding experience for us to hear such personal stories from each other, and thank you for the amendment, very important.
Okay. Representative Arndt, there's a motion on the table for the passage of SJR 009. Representative Arndt.
Thank you. I move it as amended and ask that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Okay, before we go to roll call, let's pass the resolution first. All of those in favor of SJR 009 as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying no. SJR 009 as amended is passed. Great. Now would you like to, Representative Rankin?
I move the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors. Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move Senate Bill 159, 160, 161, 162, 163, 164, 165, 166, 167, 168, 169, 170, 171, 172, 173, 174, 175, 176, House Bill 1102, and House Bill 1015 be made special orders at 10:20 on Wednesday, February 15th.
You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, the bills that Assistant Majority Leader Garnett listed will be made special orders. Representative Pabon. Quite the voice. You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, I'm glad you articulated that. Representative Pabon will take the chair.
Committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for a reading of bill at length. Committee amendments will not be read unless requested, as they are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads and not read unless requested. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the majority or assistant majority leader. The court rule is relaxed. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 159.
Senate Bill 159 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Corrections.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, we had a lot of discussion yesterday about the supplemental package, and that is what is before you here this morning. And with that, I move Senate Bill 159.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 159 is the supplemental request for the Department of Corrections. I ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 159? Representative Lebsack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I might be a no vote on this when it gets to third reading, just for a protest vote. Let me tell you the reason why. We built a prison over 10 years ago in this state, and we're literally spending tens of millions of dollars, not only building the prison, but also operating that prison even when it's empty. And so now we're voting yet again on another supplemental because we needed to move prisoners from one place to another. And so I don't necessarily have issues specifically with some of the points in the supplemental, but just generally speaking, I don't like the state government wasting tens of millions of dollars over a 10-year period. And so just as a protest vote, I might be a no, because I know Representative Benavides is working on a bill and with others that might actually put that facility to work. But when the government of Colorado wastes tens of millions of dollars, my constituents don't like it. And so we need to work on that, and I hope that we take a close look at the bill that's coming forward.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 159? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 159. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. Senate Bill 159 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 160.
Senate Bill 160 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Education.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 160.
To the bill. To the bill, Representative
Thank you,
Hamner.
Mr. Chair. You're looking at me. Yes, Senate Bill 160 is a supplemental request from the Department of Education. I ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 160? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 160. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Senate Bill 160 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 161.
Senate Bill 161 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation of the offices of the Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and State Planning and Budgeting.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 161.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 161 is a supplemental request from the Office of the Governor. I ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 161? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 161. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Senate Bill 161 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 162.
Senate Bill 162 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 162.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 162 is a supplemental request from the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing. I ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 162? Seeing none, the question. Committee will be in a brief recess.
Oh.
The House will come back to order. Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 162? Lay it over.
Yeah, lay it over too.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 162, one bill.
That's Mr. Chair, not Madam.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. Senate Bill 161 will be laid over as requested. 162 will be laid over as requested by the Majority Leader.
You guys want to go look at the amendment, please?
Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 163.
Look at the amendment.
Senate Bill 163 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Human Services.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 163.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 163 is a supplemental request for the Department of Human Services, and I ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 163? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 163. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
Voting.
Senate Bill 163 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 162.
Senate Bill 162 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 162.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, Senate Bill 162 is the supplemental request from the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing. I ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 162? The House will be in a brief recess.
You guys, this is...
The House will come back to order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 162, two bills.
Senate Bill 162 will be laid over as requested by the Majority Leader. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 164.
Senate Bill 164 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Judicial Department.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 164.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 164 is a supplemental request for the Judicial Department. I ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 164? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 164. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Senate Bill 164 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 165.
Senate Bill 165 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Law.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 165.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a yes vote on the supplemental request for the Department of Law.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 165? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 165. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Senate Bill 165 is passed.
So we're not waiting.
Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 162.
Senate Bill 162 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's try this again. I move the Senate Bill 162.
Third time's a charm, Representative Hamner, to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, because I've said it 3 times now, the Senate Bill 162 is the supplemental request for the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing. I ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 162? Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to move Amendment SB 17-162.
You need, what's the amendment number, Representative Beckman?
L003.
It's been moved by Representative Beckman and is properly, it is a J amendment. Or is that a no?
So say that you move J00, whatever it is. I move J003.
All right, the J003 has been moved and is before us. To the amendment, Representative Beckman.
Yes, thank you very much. This amendment is an amendment to carve out the dollars that we are funding for hepatitis C. In 15-16, in our general fund budget, there were, I think, over $100 million for hepatitis C vaccinations. We have in corrections in the next year's budget, and also through healthcare policy and finance, additional appropriations, pretty significant appropriations. What I think would be appropriate is to pull this specific item out and to have a study set, or to have HCPF, Healthcare Policy and Finance, come to the Health, Insurance, and Environment Committee and give us a short briefing. This is a tremendous amount of budget, general fund money, and we can bring it back once we have had this discussion. It's a very expensive procedure. It's about $90,000 per person to treat, and I'm not opposed to the treatment, but there's a very large rebate that goes along with this that is about 42% that just goes back to healthcare policy and finance. For transparency reasons, I think it would be good to carve this piece out, to vote, to schedule this for one of our meetings, maybe Human Services or Health and Human Services or Health and Insurance and Environment. Thank you very much. I would appreciate a yes vote on this amendment.
Representative Rankin.
Well, this is clearly an important issue and one that we discussed at great length in Joint Budget Committee. However, what we're considering here today is a supplemental for the budget that goes through next July. So the decision was made fully within the authority of the department in October to change these criteria, and these dollars have been committed through this year. So what we're voting on here is the budget for this year. I would very much encourage this exact conversation to take place relative to next year's budget, the one we're currently considering. So I would encourage you to follow the suggestion to have the discussion, but vote no on this amendment because this is a supplemental for this year's budget.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And with all due respect to the amendment J003, I encourage a no vote. I appreciate the sentiment here, but this is last year's budget. These were open hearings at the Joint Budget Committees, many of them that I attended, and these were all publicly noticed. To remand this back to either a committee that myself or Representative Ginal chair, when we all were given the same opportunity to actually review this, doesn't make sense to me. This is life-saving medication. This is last year's budget. If we want to take a harder look at this, let's take a harder look at it, but this isn't the way to do it, and I encourage a no vote.
Is there any further discussion on Representative Young?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I concur with both what Representative Rankin has said and also Representative Singer. This is the current year budget. This is work that's going on now. We should have the conversation going forward, but at the end of the day, that's for next year's budget. And it is a good conversation on how we determine what's medically necessary and serving people to ensure that they are well cared for. But this particular policy is in effect now, and if we vote no on this, it does put us in a bind in the current fiscal year. So I ask for a no vote on the amendment.
Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do look forward to having that conversation as we get ready for this year's lawn bill, because this is the elephant in the room, so to speak. This is a section of the budget that is tanking our budget. When I was running for office, which was just in 2014, this was a $6.5 billion part of our budget. We increased it in last year's lawn bill to over $9 billion, and now the department's coming back once again because of caseloads and saying that wasn't enough. That's 42% increase in just the last, 4 years, over 10% per year. And it's taking our budget, our K through 12 budget, our transportation budget, and it's putting it all to stress. I hope we do have that conversation. Thank you, Representative Beckman, for bringing this great amendment.
Is there any further discussion on J003? Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to point out, I understand this is last year's budget, but changes were made in the pharmaceutical charts to change the criteria for this prescription, and that is why the change of circumstance was the reason why the additional $100 million was necessary. What I'm looking for is just more of a general discussion about the entire program, what we're trying to do, who we're treating, and I think that that would be for transparency and to understand it in the Health, Insurance, and Environment Committee. I think that would be more, I think it would be a good thing.
Is there any further discussion on J003? Representative McKeon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of this amendment. I think that not only do we need to have a discussion about the specifics here, but I think also what we're seeing as we see supplementals is we begin to see some of the challenges that we have with certain items. And in this one especially, when you get down to the details in all of our supplemental books and you find out that we don't even know what the real cost of this is per patient, we have a responsibility to start digging deeper. I urge a vote.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You haven't seen me for a while. Members, I ask for a no vote on this amendment. Remember, we're in the supplemental process where we're truing up the budget year in which we currently are. And we really need to pass the supplemental as is, and this amendment is not appropriate. So I ask for a no vote.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of Amendment J003. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. J003 fails. To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, renew my motion for a yes vote on Senate Bill 162.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 162? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 162. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. Senate Bill 162 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 166.
Senate Bill 166 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation of the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 166.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a yes vote on this supplemental bill for the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 166? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 166. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
No, you're...
Senate Bill 166 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 167.
Senate Bill 167 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Personnel.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 167.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a yes vote on the supplemental request from the Department of Personnel.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 167? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 167. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Senate Bill 167 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 168.
Senate Bill 168 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Public Safety.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 168.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Senate Bill 168 is the supplemental for the Department of Public Safety, and I ask for a yes vote, please.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 168? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 168. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Senate Bill 168 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 169.
Senate Bill 169 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Revenue.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a yes vote on I move Senate Bill 169.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a yes vote on Senate Bill 169.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 169? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 169. All those in favor say aye. 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 Those opposed say no. Senate Bill 169 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 170.
Senate Bill 170 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of State.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 170.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a yes vote on Senate Bill 170.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 170? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 170. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Senate Bill 170 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 171.
Senate Bill 171 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Transportation.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 171.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a yes vote on Senate Bill 171.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Lundeen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, we're going through a process today where we're hearing all sorts of reasonable requests from the departments.
Representative Lundeen, let me get the body's attention for a moment. We are on second reading. Let's please give our respect to Representative Lundeen as he addresses the chamber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, we're walking through this process today about funding government. We're hearing about all sorts of reasonable requests, or what seem to be reasonable requests, coming to us through the Joint Budget Committee from the departments. They're saying our caseload is up, our situation demands that we need some more money to deal with this. But we have also, and I'm speaking specifically to the transportation supplemental request, we have also reasonable requests from the taxpayers. They are saying our roads and bridges are not adequate to the capacity that they need to be. Our roads and bridges are such that it is difficult for us to get to and from where we need to go to work, where we want to enjoy our community, where we want to enjoy our state in a reasonable and predictable way. So my comment to this particular supplemental is not one nickel more until we deal with this critical issue of roads and bridges in Colorado. So I take this opportunity to object to this particular transportation supplemental and encourage you to join me in saying not one nickel more in additional dollars until we deal with the reasonable request that the taxpayers are bringing to us, and that is for adequate capacity on the roads and bridges of Colorado.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 171? Seeing none, the question, Representative McKean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I got up to speak about HCPF a minute ago, and I'll speak again about this. When we get down to the places where we get to have our voices heard, this is one of those places. I would encourage a no vote on this to send that message to CDOT that says not only treat our taxpayers right, but every single one of us coming down here understands that the problems are larger than they are willing to deal with. As Nancy Reagan said, just say no.
Representative Rankin.
I can't resist. On this particular supplemental, we always like to complain about our favorite departments. On this particular supplemental, what you're voting for is spending approval for a $95,000 grant from the city of Pueblo to work on planning for the Southwest Cheap. That's what you're voting for. I invite you to come down and complain about your favorite departments. We all do that, but that's not what we're voting for.
Representative Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Representative Rankin, Mr. Member of the Joint Budget Committee. I understand, and you are absolutely correct. This, what is it, $95,000 is very specific in the request. But my position, my comment remains the same. Not one nickel more until we deal with the crisis of roads and bridges in Colorado.
Representative Rankin, taking the bait.
And Representative Lundin, I am going to join you on the podium when we bring up that exact issue in the future, talking about next year's budget. Thank you for those comments.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 171? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 171. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Senate Bill 171 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 172.
Senate Bill 172 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning a funding for capital construction and making supplemental appropriations in connection therewith.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 172.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a yes vote on Senate Bill 172.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 172? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 172. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Senate Bill 172 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 173.
Senate Bill 173 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning adjustments in the amount of total program funding for public schools for the 2016-17 budget year and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 173.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ask for a yes vote on Senate Bill 173.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 173? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 173. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Senate Bill 173 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 174.
Senate Bill 174 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning the allocation of money by the Colorado Commission on Higher Education for tuition assistance for members of the National Guard.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 174.
To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, ask for a yes vote on Senate Bill 174.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 174? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 174. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Senate Bill 174 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 175.
Senate Bill 175 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning the transfer of money between state self-insurance funds at the request of the Executive Director of the Department of Personnel.
Representative Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 175.
To the bill, Representative Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is concerning transfer of money between state self-insurance funds. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 175? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 175. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Senate Bill 175 passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 176.
Senate Bill 176 by Senator Moreno, also Representative Rankin, concerning authorization to use money in the Colorado State Titling and Registration Account to issue devices that confirm a person has a registered motor vehicle and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Representative Rankin.
Mr. Chairman, I move Senate Bill 176 and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on Senate Bill 176? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Senate Bill 176. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Senate Bill 176 passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over the balance of the special orders calendar till Thursday, February 16th.
The remainder of the special orders calendar will be laid over as requested by the Majority Leader. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we rise and report.
Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Randall, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs to report it has under its consideration the following attached bills being a second reading thereof and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 159, Senate Bill 160, Senate Bill 161, Senate Bill 162, Senate Bill 163, Senate Bill 164, Senate Bill 165, Senate Bill 166, Senate Bill 167, Senate Bill 168, Senate Bill 169, Senate Bill 170, Senate Bill 171, Senate Bill 172, Senate Bill 173, Senate Bill 174, Senate Bill 175, Senate Bill 176 passed on second reading in order to revise and place on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Balance of special orders calendar laid over to tomorrow, February 16, 2017, retaining its place on the calendar.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Randall. Representative Pabon. You have heard the motion, and there are no amendments. Mr. Randall, please open the machine. All right, please close the machine. With 58 yes votes, 7 no votes, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Announcements and introductions. Representative Lawrence.
You can ask that it be read. I didn't know you were asking for that.
Yeah.
Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I am asking that a tribute be read at length.
State of Colorado, the Senate and House of Representatives convened in the 71st General Assembly hereby extend sincere commendations to Captain Kevin Duffy and congratulations to an exceptional citizen of Colorado on receiving the esteemed award of excellence in law enforcement. Captain Duffy started his career at the Douglas County Sheriff's Office 27 years ago. During this time, he has become an excellent role model to youth, the community, and his colleagues in law enforcement. It is because of him that many relationships between the Sheriff's Office and the community have been established. The members of the Senate and the House of Representatives are proud to recognize and congratulate Captain Duffy and wish to thank him on his dedicated service to the citizens of Douglas County and to our entire state. On request of Representatives Lawrence, Neville, Ransom, and Van Winkle, and Senators Holbert and Smallwood, given this 24th day of January 2017, State Capitol in Denver, Colorado, signed Kevin Grantham, President of the Senate, and Crisanta Duran, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, you may be seated. I know we've had a long morning on the floor, and I just want to mention the hard work that Captain Duffy has done throughout his career and his ability to bring different groups together and find common ground on issues that the Sheriff's Department in Douglas County deals with. I was speaking with Sheriff Spurlock earlier, who is here in attendance, and he just mentioned that Captain Duffy seems to have a knack for bringing people together, finding common ground, being able to find a resolution to issues that some people might find unresolvable. And maybe we should have him come down and run a class for all of us. I'm just saying. I just want to take this moment to recognize the outstanding work of Captain Duffy, thank his family for being here, his wife, his son, his daughter-in-law, his grandchildren, his brother and sister-in-law. Thank you very much for your patience, for sitting here and getting to see how the sausage of lawmaking actually works in the House chamber today. And just thank you again for your hard work and dedication to the people of Douglas County.
Thank you very much for joining us at the Capitol. Any further announcements or introductions? Representative Ransom. And Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you, Representative Lawrence, for running that the tribute. I just need to introduce some of the other people that are here. Our county commissioners have joined us to recognize Captain Duffy as well. We have our 3 county commissioners, Laura Thomas, Roger Partridge, and Dave Weaver over there. So thank you, and please welcome them to the chamber.
Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We also have our very well-respected sheriff from Douglas County here, Sheriff Tony Spurlock.
Thank you. Any further announcements or introductions? Representative Norberg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, we have a real treat today. We have Team USA cycling member, Olympic silver medalist Jennifer Valente, as well as members of the USOC and our very own Regent Kyle Hibble from the University of Colorado. Please give him a warm applause.
Wow, congratulations. Welcome to the Capitol. Representative Foote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just an announcement about State Veterans and Military Affairs this afternoon. We're at 1:30 It's going to be an LSBA as usual. We have one bill on the calendar, House Bill 1099 by Representative Leonard. Some of you may have noticed that there was a bill on the calendar yesterday, House Bill 1114. That bill was moved to March 1st at the sponsor's request. So just one bill this afternoon, House Bill 1099, 130, State Affairs.
Representative Lentine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Years ago, I used to work in advertising, and we were told that the magic formula for getting people to pay attention was to mention something at least 3 times. So this is my second time I'm mentioning this. I brought it up yesterday. Tomorrow, a mobile learning lab will be here. It's going to be parked on the south side of the state capitol, on the south sidewalk along 14th Avenue. I'll get there. This is your opportunity to see how we are able to bring learning to the folks who need it where they need it. So this is a state-of-the-art lab that's been nationally recognized, and it is from our own Pueblo Community College. Thank you, Representative Escar, for reminding me. So don't forget, it'll be here from 8 to 2 tomorrow, and I will be up here again reminding you to go check it out.
Thank you, Representative Lentine. I do have one announcement. Representative Kennedy will replace Representative Bridges on the Transportation Committee today. Representative Mitch Bush.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking of the Transportation Committee, we will meet as usual at 1:30 today. We will have 2 bills before us, House Bill 1152 with Willett and Mitch Bush, House Bill 1151 with Hansen and Willett. See you there.
Representative Norberg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, real quick, the Colorado Retail Council will be doing their annual legislative reception this evening from 5 to 7:30 p.m. at the U Club. Please feel free to attend. Thank you.
Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I swear this is my last time down here this morning. I just want to remind everybody that we have the Victims' Rights Caucus lunch today downstairs in room, I think, 109. One of the big rooms downstairs. So I hope you'll join us today. See you there. Thank you.
Any further announcements or introductions? And I have one more announcement, which is Representative Herod will be replacing Representative Melton on the State Affairs Committee. Any further announcements or introductions? Seeing no further announcements or introductions, Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess.
Representative Arndt is making the mad dash. Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There will be no joint House and Senate Agriculture Committee today upon adjournment. We were so long on the floor that the Colorado State Forest Service, evidently Senator Sonnenberg, sent them home. So, see you. And there'll be no, Monday's a holiday, so no ag next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess till 1:30 today.
The motion is that the House will stand in recess until 1:30 today, and that motion stands.